This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by Brett Young. Change the game with BY7204LL, Brett Young's newest canola hybrid with Liberty Link technology.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lindsay Smith, and today's show is brought to you by Bayer and DeKalb and the DeKalb Coat of Farms. What is the DeKalb Coat of Farms? Well, lucky you, in our third segment today, you're going to hear from Kate Hyatt and Sean Haney, and they are going to explain the entire concept, how you can get involved, and what you can win. Yes, it is indeed a contest, and it sounds pretty darn cool. So stick around. That's in our third segment. I've got a great show lined up for you today. It is Wednesday, so we are going to talk markets, of course. So later in the show, you'll hear from Steve Kell with Kell Grain. He's going to go over, yes, some of the Ontario crop, because he is based in Ontario, but I've got some questions about the next crop we should be thinking about, and Steve's got some excellent insight into what's happening in South America and why or how that may lead to some pricing opportunities for growers heading into the fall and winter season. So definitely some good questions to answer there. So looking forward to that. Of course, this time of year, everyone's eyes are on the weather. And so Matt Makins is going to join me here in the next segment. I've got some questions certainly about harvest weather for here in the east, but also for those that, of course, there are still lots of beans, lots of canola still out there to be harvested, although some of our prairie friends are wrapping up harvest, which is lovely to see, but there's still plenty to do. And, well, we need some fall moisture in many of those areas, and I want to know if prairie farmers will be smiling this October or not. And Matt's got those answers. And I'm going to have to ask him about if we've got a winter forecast yet that we can really depend on. I am hopeful, as many of you maybe are, for here in Ontario anyway, we had a delightful winter last year. Not a lot of snow, not a lot of extreme cold, but I have a feeling we will not luck out twice. Now, there's also, of course, for the west, what kind of snow cover we may get. Still some areas very much struggling with drought, and we'll see if that is going to turn around here in the fall and into the winter season. So stick around for that. Also, at the end of the show, I tracked down Dale Cowan, a friend here of RealAgriculture, and you've seen him plenty of times on The Agronomist as well. He's the senior agronomist with Agris Co-op. He was, of course, part of the Great Lakes Crop Tour that went just recently, and the report just came out today. And that tour actually brought to you by Bayer and DeKalb as well. So fits in beautifully with today's show sponsor. We get a look at where the Ontario crop is headed as far as yield for corn and soybeans. But I want to know more about when you go on a crop tour like this, what are you actually looking for, and what can you learn from walking some of these fields? Because, of course, this is an excellent time of year for taking stock, really, doing a report card. Yield is, yes, the big factor that everybody wants to know, and ultimately that's really what matters. That's what pays the bills. We know that. But there's so many components that make up yield, everything from your seeding or planting rate to your row spacing to just how much seedling mortality you potentially had, diseases, water, when you got rain, how much rain, and then, of course, for crops like the corn crop, of course, that key pollination window. And Dale, of course, is a huge proponent of using imagery and using precision agriculture and really digging into your fertility program and whether or not the program that you've had really met that crop potential need, because that is one of the things that we run into. Speaking of, a little plug for Monday's episode of The Agronomist, we're going to talk about micronutrients. And realistically, micronutrients are not not going to save a crop, but when a micronutrient is in deficit, when there's a deficiency, it can really hamper yield potential. So check that out. That's Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So we've got a great show lined up. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're listening on SiriusXM or whether you've downloaded the podcast. We appreciate you all. We also really appreciate your feedback, and I've been getting some great feedback on so many things that are happening, and definitely some discussion on technology in agriculture. A lot of people are interested in having their say on that one. I really appreciate that. You can zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. You can, of course, find me across social media at RealLoudLindsay. You can head to any of our social media channels at Real Agriculture. We're on YouTube, X, Facebook, you name it, we're there. You can send us a message, and Paige Holmquist will get those messages to us. And of course, if you feel like it, you can pick up that phone, 1-855-776-6147, and you can leave us a message there. I did want to, before we hop to our break, I wanted to acknowledge today being September 11th. 23 years ago, of course, was the terror attack on the Twin Towers in New York. I will always remember exactly where I was on that morning, and I think for those of us of a certain age and for everyone who was impacted by that day, we can't forget where we were that day when everything changed. And so I did want to acknowledge that day. Let's get to a break, and I'll be back with today's show brought to you by Bayer and DeKalb and the DeKalb Coda Farms. Let's take a break. I'll be right back right after this.
At Vaterstad, we aim to be the world's leading partner for outstanding emergence. We're doing that through innovative tillage, planting, and seeding equipment that's optimized for your field conditions and soil types. We also offer industry-leading capacities to help you get the job done in shorter windows of time. It's all designed to give your crop the best start possible so you can maximize yields. Vaterstad, we look forward to growing together.
The Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com has everything you need to get your crop off to a great start and a strong finish. Whether you're growing chickpeas, faba beans, lentils, or peas, you'll get all the latest and best agronomic information at PulseSchool.com. A library of top-notch agronomy videos from industry experts available on demand at your fingertips. Visit the Pulse School, brought to you by BASF on RealAgriculture.com.
Advanced canola trait technology is here. And it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance. Improved crop safety. Enhanced weed control. And a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlide.ca.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on this Wednesday, September 11th. I am your host for the day, Lindsay Smith, and today's show brought to you by the DeKalb Coda Farms. The DeKalb Coda Farms is the first farmer-driven, artificial intelligence-enhanced line of DeKalb swag. You could win one of 10 unique coats designed by you. Create your DeKalb Coda Farms and see the full contest details at DeKalbCodaFarms.ca. No purchase necessary. Now, we're going to hop to today's first interview, which is with Matt Makins. But if you're curious about this Coda Farms, stick around after the break. We're actually going to have Kate Hyatt with Bayer and DeKalb on to explain the entire thing. So stick around for that. But of course, it is September. It is either wrapping up of harvest and or just really getting going on corn silage in Ontario. And that has us all thinking about not just the weather in the next few weeks, but what, yes, I have to say it, what winter may hold for the West and the East. So let's hop now to my conversation with Matt Makins of Makins Weather right now. Welcome back to Real Ag Radio. I am your host for the day, Lindsay Smith, and joining me now out of Denver, Colorado, it's Matt Makins with Makins Weather. How are you, Matt?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. Hope everyone's doing all right.
Yeah, we're doing well. It is, well, we're going to talk weather, and it is a beautiful day. It's a beautiful week in Ontario, but I have to tell you, it was darn cold for a good week.
Yeah, it was. You extended that cold. You sent it down toward the Great Lakes and into our upper Midwest here in the States. So yeah, we we were reminded what's about to come in, I think, yeah.
It was a bit of a like, hey, make sure you're getting ready for fall because it's coming.
That's right.
Now, it did, though, if we can maybe start there. Let's start in Ontario. We can work our way through. We do have, I think, decent crop potential in the province for sure. Soybeans perhaps a bit more variable, but there's a lot of crop a long way from the finish line here. And that cold weather, not what we needed. What's in store for the next couple of weeks?
Overall, there's most of the moisture is we'll get some, but it's not gonna be a surplus. Most of the moisture is gonna be to the west in the prairies, okay? Especially, the next couple of days, today through the next couple of days. As we look at kind of the longer term picture, okay, I'll shrink it down, but long term, for the next several months through fall, we are likely to stay warmer than average. That can help sustain a harvest if we need to extend a little bit, whatever that case may be. But now let me shrink that down, okay? Because even if the outlook, which has been warmer than average and continues that way, we can still get these little chunks of, say, 3 or 4 days where we get too cool, right? And we have that frost potential. We saw that last week. It's out in the Maritimes. Tomorrow morning, they're going to have a frost. So we'll have to watch for those short-term impacts. So when you hear that the long-range outlook is warmer, don't ignore that short-term frost or killing freeze even. There can be that potential this time of the year, obviously.
Okay, that's not the news we wanted, but it's the weather. None of us get to choose it. So there you go. Now, I think that, for the West, certainly, there's many areas that would be thankful to get this moisture, although could it not have come in June or even July and not at harvest time? That's always a question. But you did mention perhaps a bit more moisture to the west. Is it looking like we might get some soil moisture recharge for those areas that really need it?
Yeah, last 30 days, we've seen the drought numbers really skyrocket throughout the prairies, mostly the western. Over the next few days, so starting now through about Thursday or Friday or so, a lot of the central to western prairies will pick up 40, 50, 60 centimeters, or millimeters, excuse me. So a good amount of rainfall. So for the next 2 weeks, wetter than average for that region. And then it will dry off beyond this weekend. But it's looking at a favorable pattern between now and, say, the weekend. And there's not necessarily a lot of cold in that area. So if folks are worried about frost there's going to be snow in the mountains. Great. Send it up there.
We like
but
it.
Down below, we're not necessarily looking at much of a cold impact, just cooler, if you will. But yeah, a good amount of water there for the next 3-4 days or so.
Okay, so that, of course, is all well and good for what we do here in Canada. But ultimately, when it comes to the type of weather that's going to move the markets, that really all comes down to the U.S. corn crop, the U.S. soybean crop. We saw from the tour the incredible yield potential that's potentially out there. What are we seeing for the trend for the weather in those critical areas that are really going to make or break this crop?
Sure. Over the next several weeks, there's going to be water that hits mostly our central and northern corn areas. That can be a potential impact on harvest as we approach that point, obviously. The longer range outlook, though, closer to our harvest times, prime times there, it looks like we'll have favorable windows for field work, some drier periods. So the frequency of storms here has decreased coming out of the summer, which can be more favorable, obviously, for us to bring in the grain, obviously, there. But over the next, say, week or so, there's still going to be some wet pockets in there. So field work issues for, say, 10 days, hit a drier pocket. Go forward, it looks like next month, October, will be drier than how September has panned out to be. Temperature-wise, we've had some cooler areas, a little bit of frost on the far northern fringes of our grain areas, but we're not necessarily worried about frost down here like you have been up there, and that's a good thing. So now we're just going to time out the precipitation and those favorable chunks of time.
All right. Now, I don't want to talk about winter, but we have to talk about winter. And that is a ways out. However, it feels like if we're going to even consider what comes after harvest and the dreaded W, the discussions turn to La Nina and El Nino and those phenomena. What, at least initially, does it look like as we look forward into the later months? What might we see with those trends coming into winter?
Okay, for the remainder of this year, for the remainder of 2024, La Nina is very likely to move in. It's already developing. In the ocean conditions, that's where it's technically defined, but it's already in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is behaving very La Nina-like. And classically in the fall, that can deliver moisture to the central and western prairies. It kind of cuts, it kind of cuts Ontario and Quebec in half. Some get water, some are really dry in that pattern because it's kind of like what's left from the prairies to reach us at that point. And temperature-wise, during falls with La Nina, we can be quite mild, especially central and eastern areas. But once we hit winter, so December, January into February, you'll notice, wow, the cold is getting a lot colder and it's staying longer. Not necessarily a wetter period for winter, but it's certainly going to be colder. So in quick summation, compare this incoming winter to last, it will be colder. We will likely have more frequent snow, but that doesn't mean, I don't want it to sound like it's going to be snowier or just more frequent systems. But yeah, plan on it being a colder winter.
I don't know, Matt. I asked you on the show, and this is what you give. Although this is, you know what is it? I mean, we're forewarned, right? So for those of us who have livestock, make sure you've got your hay secured and make sure that you're ready for those colder biases, those colder systems that work through. So that's okay. Also book your vacations. That's what you're telling me.
Book your vacation south, buy your hay now. It's favorable price compared to where it will be in a few months. And then we'll sit out the cold together down south somewhere where we're all warm.
I like it. Okay. All right. So now what does a La Nina, though, mean for the West? What does that mean for the prairies?
Fall can be favorable for water. But once we start to get to winter, especially the early winter, say through Christmas and New Year's, you can get a lot of those Chinook winds coming through. So the east side of the Rockies there toward the western prairies, they can have really dramatic temperature swings, very warm with a Chinook, and then you're cold all of a sudden. You can get these winters where, hey, we're brown Christmas. Where's the water, and that's kind of a setup. So for early to mid-fall, favorable with La Nina to get water on the prairies, and then we dry out pretty progressively through winter and start off spring on a dry note. And this is where we can run into some soil moisture issues that hit the prairies.
Okay, so conserve that soil moisture that should be falling, we hope, this fall.
Should be falling, yes.
All right.
With a warmer outlook, it's favorable because this fall moisture, it's falling on thawed ground, soak it in, and then freeze it.
All right.
That's the hope.
That's the hope. Okay. Matt Makins, where can people go to find more on Makins Weather?
Go to makinsweather.com. Lots of stuff there for Canada, the States. Also CanFax, a product from you guys out of Calgary. There's monthly updates quarterly updates with outlooks, long range stuff, discussions on their website. So canfax.ca.
All right. Matt Makins, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we're going to hop to a break, and as promised, you're going to learn all about the DeKalb Coat of Farms right after this. If you have a growing list of questions about getting more from your fields, know that Koch Agronomic Services has an answer for every acre. With a full spectrum of nutrient management, nutrient protection, and seed enhancement options, Koch Agronomic Services offers a deep portfolio of agronomically effective products. Each designed to enhance yield potential, all available to help solve your problems. Find the answer that's right for your acres. Start by visiting kochag.ca. That's Koch ag.ca.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Since 2010, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has been helping farmers to grow great wheat. Covering everything from markets, the latest research, pest and disease control, all the way down to on-farm trials, the Wheat School has everything your crop needs. Check out our massive video library on YouTube and grow great wheat with the Wheat School, brought to you by Syngenta Canada, C&M Seeds, and Alberta Grains.
to RealAg Radio. Today's show is brought to you by DeKalb, and that's exactly where we're going to go next. We got a product spotlight with Kate Hyatt. She is the marketing portfolio lead for DeKalb in Eastern Canada. Kate, great to have you on the program.
Thanks so much, Sean. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and thanks a lot to DeKalb for being today's show sponsor. So let's talk about the DeKalb coat of arms. How does this work?
Yeah, I'm going to correct you. Let's call it the DeKalb coat of farms. A little bit of a play on words there. And what it is it's a fun, innovative way for us to interact with our customers at an event like Canada's Outdoor Farm Show. The
play on words is so good that you just got me there. That's pretty good. The coat.
Sorry.
The coat of farms. Sorry about that. That is.
Yeah, that's okay.
So let's talk about the why here. Why did DeKalb Seed decide to do this?
That's a great question. Why, overarching overall, is to have some fun. Let's have some fun while we are engaging with our customers, people who choose DeKalb Seed, people who choose to work with Bayer and all of our staff. One of the things that DeKalb stands behind is our performance year after year and the consistency that we have with our hybrids and varieties. You and I both know that the potential that's wrapped into a particular seed is only unleashed by once a farmer has it in their hands and they do with it what they do. So Coat of Farms is an initiative to celebrate the partnership between DeKalb Seed and the farmers that are choosing it. And we're using it to help bring to life the stories that are behind all of those customers. And we do that by having customized DeKalb swag, and we can talk about what that means, where each design is a fun, innovative design based on questions that someone has answered.
Okay, so this sounds like a lot of fun. How can farmers participate in this coat of farms?
Yeah, we have a couple of ways, and it is a lot of fun. I designed my jacket a couple of days ago when we were testing out the software. You're welcome to do it too, Sean. I would highly encourage you to see what your jacket looks like when you get a minute. So how can they participate? Come visit us. Come visit us at our Farmer Appreciation event at Canada's Outdoor Farm Show. You can also go to DeKalbCoatOfFarms.ca and design your jacket. You're
designing a jacket for your own farm with DeKalb included in it, or what is it? What is the like? Give us a little more details on that.
I wish I could show you a picture. So basically, what it is the way that Coat of Farms works is it's a farmer-driven, artificial intelligence enhanced line of DeKalb swag. So basically, what we have created is an interface on an iPad or on your phone or your computer, depending on how you're accessing it. You answer a series of questions that help drill down to what represents you. And then at the end of the question answering, a 3D rendered jacket gets created, and AI helps build the graphics that are behind that. There's also a crest on the front. I have to think about this. Front right side has a crest based on some of the questions that you've answered. It has a DeKalb logo. There's the year you started farming. There's also what are your favorite Bayer products on the other arm. And then on the back, it has hashtag making history, which is what we're trying to celebrate when we talk about DeKalb and Bayer and the customers that are purchasing our products.
Oh, very cool. I love the touch of the Bayer products on the sleeve. It's like the high jacket where it said Ford Trucks and Curling.
Exactly.
So how long does this go on for?
That's a great question. So contest runs from August 27th through to October 15th. People will be working with at Expo Champ from August 27th to 29th as an interface, and then at Canada's Outdoor Farm Show as well. And then through social media, it ends on October 15th. After October 15th, there's going to be a contest where 10 of the coats will be available to be won through draws and from the people that participated.
This is an extremely unique kind of opportunity to engage as farmers with what's going on at Bear and DeKalb. Okay, so just quickly review ways to participate. We got upcoming farm shows, and what is the website we do the design?
Yeah, let me say that again. It's DeKalbCoatOfFarms.ca.
That is great. DeKalbCoatOfFarms.ca. Kate, thanks for joining us here today on Real Ag Radio. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks so much, Sean.
Oh, awesome promotion. That is really cool. I'm going to definitely go to the website and design a coat. I think it's...
Please do.
I want to see what shows up my sleeve. Okay, we'll be right back on Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio 147, brought to you by Bayer.
Whether you're in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, running your own farm operation, operating a company in ag or food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Niagara Falls on November 17th, 18th, and 19th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lindsay Smith, and today's show is brought to you by Bayer and DeKalb and the DeKalb Coda Farms. It is the first farmer-driven, artificial intelligence-enhanced line of DeKalb swag, and you could win one of 10 unique coats designed by you. Create your DeKalb Coda Farms and see full contest details at DeKalbCodaFarms.ca. No purchase necessary. And joining me now is Steve Kell. He's a grain merchandiser with Kell Grain based here in Ontario. Steve, how are you?
We're doing good. Beautiful day, right at the start of harvest.
That's right. We have a gorgeous week ahead of us, which I feel like we lucked out a little bit. You've been busy, though, of course, before things get really busy with harvest, doing a lot of speaking engagements, talking about marketing this fall, definitely some challenges for producers. Where do we sit? Let's maybe just generally, where are we sitting right now in corn and beans for Ontario? What's the general sense out there on pricing?
Well, pricing is not great. It's 25% lower than it was a year ago, and that's cause for a lot of concern. The reality is that we've spent the whole spring and summer talking about how big North America's crop is. Big acres got planted. We had good rainfall. We had near perfect growing conditions in most places. So it's a big crop, and that's all we seem to want to talk about, and that's all that buyers want to hear. And I think we're just now at a stage where we're probably better off if we look forward. That, maybe the North American crop is made. USDA is going to come out on Thursday and adjust it, but it'll be bushel here, bushel there. But the crop that's not made is South America. And South America grows more corn or more soybeans than we do, certainly more corn than Ontario does, and they haven't started planting yet. So I think as grain marketers, instead of looking at the mess we're in, we should look forward. October, November is our harvest time, but it's their planting time. And if they run into weather problems, that is more apt to create a rally opportunity for us to do marketing than anything that's going to happen on this continent.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes we get local bias, right? We tend to pay a little more attention, and that's important. That makes sense that we do it, but you're right, we have to think bigger picture, because of course the market moves are going to be driven by other areas, not necessarily what's happening in our own backyard. Definitely hearing though, as you outlined, prices aren't necessarily that favorable. Definitely some grumbling happening. We've also got farmers that have quite a bit of unpriced crop, which maybe let's start first with a discussion on, from your experience, the average, let's say, Ontario grower, which I know maybe doesn't exist, but would you say that they're more priced than usual, less priced than usual? What is the typical sort of at this point in time with harvest just beginning, where you would think many farmers would be usually?
I actually think that most of the guys are in a normal sort of situation for having crops sold, right? That by the time we get to this time of year, there's probably still 15% of the corn crop still in farmer storage, but we still have 6 weeks to get to new crop in any real volume. And of course, we never run out, especially in a market like Ontario where there's so much livestock. You can't not make feed, so you can't ever completely run out of corn. So yeah, it feels like there's a lot of corn around for the middle of September, but there won't be any new crop for another 4 weeks. And we'll, probably grind our way through it. There's even a little bit of export activity going out the river here in the next couple of weeks. So that'll pull some corn out of the Ontario marketplace. And yeah, there'll be a little bit of corn that has a birthday, but not any more than you'd expect. I mean, maybe somebody's got a high vom bin that they intended to blend with new crop. Maybe, they've got livestock they've got to feed. So no, I think we're pretty good there. We maybe have a few more soybeans than we would on a normal year. Those, for all intents and purposes, have had a birthday now. Pretty hard to market any more old crop. We'll see combines in the field here really soon. The problem with soybeans wasn't the farmer's fault either. It's we've crushed extremely slowly in Ontario or in Eastern Canada this year. There's 3 crush plants. One of them has been on strike for 2 months. So that cut into the amount of crop that got processed here. There wasn't much of a spring export program. So I think some of it got put away last winter with a reasonable expectation that demand was going to be there, and demand softened a bit. So that's not a good situation, but it's understandable, and I fully expect we're going to push a lot of beans out the St. Lawrence River here in the next 6 weeks. So there's a chance to tidy it up and move on a little smarter than we were last time.
Mm-hmm. Now, and this is one of the things I find sort of fascinating about the Ontario market is that the soybean harvest certainly is typically sort of, in a lot of ways sold right off the combine. Those boats start moving and out it goes. It's not a crop that we typically, necessarily wait to sell. There is good demand in the fall and out it goes. However, certainly soybean prices not making a lot of farmers smile. And so maybe, they've been less likely to price. When it comes to unpriced crop, you did mention, looking forward and looking where we're going to head. How are you navigating that discussion with farmers on what they haven't have priced yet?
I think there was actually a decent amount of stuff got booked a while ago. So I wouldn't say that there's farmers who haven't got anything done. The reality of the Ontario marketplace is that we can export soybeans from the start of harvest till the sea wave freezes up. And once the river is frozen, we're done. We can't export until the following April. Well, by April, you're into South American harvest. And so you've carried this crop for 6 months so that you can actually participate in the South American harvest low. So it's a bad idea. If you're, maybe you can sell carry to put them into another market later. But just as a general rule, our opportunity to move beans is in the fall. And you've got to build your marketing plan and your elevator storage around doing that, especially with crusher style soybeans. What I would say about the market is that, we're going to have a USDA report on Thursday. They're going to adjust the yield a little bit. Instead of 53 bushels per acre, it's going to be 52.6 or 53.9. They'll tweak it because they always do, but it's not the kind of thing that can drive the market. And so we'll see these really fast but small moves. Soybean futures are up 13% or 13 cents the other day, down 17 the next day. They're back up 7 this morning. They're really fast moves, and they're actually pretty violent moves, but they're not really going anywhere. It's a little bit like if you've been to the rodeo, right? And you're watching a guy riding a bull, that bull is moving really fast. But let's face it, the cowboy is still falling off the bull, and the bull is not leaving the arena. And that's what we're in this soybean market. Is it's just going to bounce around. But not, the outcome isn't really a mystery. And so we have to look at that South American situation. And, last report I saw, there's a 74% chance that there'll be a La Nina system develop over South America between November and February. That typically speaks to droughts in southern Brazil and northern Argentina. And that's historically, at least 2021, 22 was the last big La Nina event they had. It was really hard on yield. So I don't know that we need the South Americans to have a crop failure, but we need a few days in late October, early November, where Chicago thinks they're going to have a crop failure, right? Yeah. That has a much greater capacity to affect the world's soybean supply than anything that's going to happen with the North American crop. So I think you just shelve it. Is that okay? It's a 53 bushel crop for North America. I haven't got them harvested yet. Whatever I've got contracted, I'll deliver. And then we just wait for whatever South American news is going to come along and create something for us. And as long as we have pretty realistic expectations about how big that bump is going to be, like we're not headed back to $17 or $18 a bushel soybeans. But, if we make our way back into the 13s, 14s, reasonable expectations of where we could get to, I think those opportunities will open up for us. Mm-hmm. I think the harvest low came before harvest started.
Right. So, which is, and I mean, excellent point, right? Is that realistically, some patience here should pay off, that you don't have to be in a rush necessarily at this point. Loving the analogy of the rodeo. We don't get to talk rodeo a lot on this show, so anytime we can bring that in, I really do appreciate it. So I like it. We know what the outcome's going to be. The bull usually wins. Yeah. Yes, so there you go. Yeah. Okay, I appreciate it. Steve, for those who maybe are looking for more information and want to follow along, do you have any social media handles, anything like that we can throw out there? No social?
I am the twit that doesn't tweet.
Hey, you're like Horst Bonner. That's Twitterless Horst. So it's fine. Yes. You just you work through everybody else. Well, there you go. If anybody wants to get a hold,
I'll answer the phone. Anybody wants to call me.
There you go. Okay, there you go. You let me know if you want to talk to Steve. I'll send his number along, and away you go. All right, Steve Kell with Kell Elevators. Thank you so much for joining me here on the show today. I really appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
Apply anhydrous ammonia and protect your application earlier than normal this fall. Defend against potential losses and protect your bottom line with Centuro Nitrogen Stabilizer. Patented active ingredient pronitridine offers agronomically effective protection where it matters most, below ground. Easy to handle Centuro is also non-corrosive for fewer worries about downtime or equipment damage. Start early with Centuro as part of your nitrogen management plan. Contact your local retailer or visit centuro.ca for more information today.
RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. Today's show, of course, brought to you by Bayer and DeKalb and the DeKalb Coat of Farms. Head on over to DeKalbCoatOfFarms.ca to enter to win. No purchase necessary, of course. Joining me now on the line, I've got Dale Cowan. He's the senior agronomist with Agris Co-op, a busy man these days, and of course, very busy, just getting back from the Great Lakes Grain Crop Assessment Tour. Dale, how are you?
I'm doing great, Lindsay, and you?
I'm doing well. The sun is finally out. It is warm again, which the beans and the corn are probably very pleased with. Let's talk maybe first about what you saw on this tour, and then maybe dive into a few of the things that maybe got us to these numbers and what still has to happen. So let's start there. How did the crop look? You went from east all the way down to the south, and things look okay, but not great.
Well, I think the crops are beating expectations. I thought maybe for a while we convinced ourselves it was not going to be a good year, but it's amazing what our varieties and hybrids can withstand on stress and recover and actually thrive. So we're not without some issues in fields, but by and large the crop is beating expectations.
Okay, so now we'll talk actual specific numbers in a bit, but where would you say are some of the stronger areas? Where are we seeing, some of the fallout from those really tough spring conditions?
Well, generally speaking, because of the rainfall early on, anything that was on the sandier side or systematically tiled, that's where we're doing well. Some of the clay-dominant landscapes, they just struggled to find enough working days to get the crop in. There's some areas around Glencoe where there's some unplanted acres there in the game south of London towards St. Thomas. There's just some tough conditions there. We're just a lot of unplanted acres through there. So for those farmers, we feel for them, it was just a tough spring.
Now, I don't want to brag, Dale, but I'm probably going to, in that my area, my area in the Ottawa-Carleton area, looking at north of 200 for estimated yield on the corn. It does look pretty good, but we've also been kind of cold the last little bit. We had this dip in the temps. Is that going to hurt the yield potential of this crop?
I don't think it's going to impact very much on corn. I'm a little tiny bit concerned on soybeans. So those nights of single-digit temperatures, I think that's pretty much started to shut the soybeans down. So that might hurt a little bit of the final yield, but we were well into a full pod by then, so we were getting ready to mature probably within 10 days to 2 weeks. So that's a week premature. So, but again, I don't think it'll be a huge impact on corn. We're certainly in the grain fill. We don't like cold nights. Once you're below 10 degrees, it takes 2 or 3 days for the crop to recover back to normal crop growth conditions. So it does delay things a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's maybe talk a bit about why do a tour like this? What do you learn from, all the hours that get put in, of all the people that travel and take a look at the crop and do these estimates? Why is a tour like this important? What can you learn?
Well, you learn an awful lot. There's no such thing as a wasted moment out in the field with a farmer. So you're always evaluating your agronomy programs. You're looking at your hybrid and variety performance. You're looking at weed control. You're looking at plant health. You're looking at equipment performance. How well did the planter space crops? How uniform did the corn come out of the ground? Because you still see evidence of that during the crop tour with barren stalks and small spindly plants and gaps in soybean stands. So there's just the whole point of evaluating the whole season at the end, and there's lots of valuable insight that's gained. And it's our 15th year of doing it. So every year, you always learn something. Mm-hmm. So it's always good, especially if the farmer can come to the field with you. You get his perspective on things, and there's always good reasons why things are the way they are, and it's nice to have the farmer's perspective on things as well when you're in the field.
Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, was there one in particular lesson you learned this year? Was it that you mentioned the genetics being able to withstand tough conditions? Is there an overarching theme that emerged this year?
Well, being able to have satellite imagery available to track crop vigor in the field and just see where the crop is doing well and where it wasn't, that helped to guide where we want to take our counts. We weren't always in the best part and always weren't in the worst part. So that was interesting. So imagery, we saw all season long between, say, 15 to 20% of the fields had maybe 10 to 30% of the acres didn't have as high of NDVI values as crop vigor as the rest of the field. So that would change through the growing season. You get more biomass. So you're seeing how the spatial variability in the field, whether it was nutrients, in this case was an awful lot of water, explained a lot of the underperforming acres. But being able to see that in near real time from the beginning to the end of the season was very insightful. And then gathering rainfall, and near as I could gather, it looks like that 2-week period before planting and 2 week after planting, the rainfall in that time frame seemed to have an awful lot of influence in how the crop looks this time of year.
Mm-hmm. So not everybody is necessarily, participating in a tour like this, although, as you mentioned, it's great when farmers can come out and talk about, how things went and what data they have. But, you mentioned just how much you can learn from a tour sort of this time of year of assessing those fields. So thinking more generally for, the average farmer that, is perhaps walking their own fields, what are the key things that you're looking for to sort of have that data to take down? So in, the winter months when you're sitting there and doing some of your planning, that's the data you look back on. What are those key metrics that you're looking at this time of year?
Well, when you start the tour, you're looking at things like nitrogen deficiency, potash deficiency that occur in the top of or in the bottom of the plant, sulfur deficiencies that go all the way to the top of the plant. You're looking at tip fill and trying to figure out whether was it lack of kernel fertilization, was it missing pollination, pollen shed, or was it actually tipped back where they had kernels that fertilized but then aborted? So that's telling you a little bit about your nutrient management program, a little bit about weather and moisture. And then, of course, plant health is a big thing this year, especially tar spot. But then we overlook northern corn leaf blight sometimes as well. We weren't seeing as much western bean cutworm feeding on the cobs, but then you're looking at is there any ear rot in the tip of the ear, and that would lead you to suspect high concentration of dawn at harvest. So those are the things the tips that you're looking for, and then just generally looking at overall plant health and just how bad is the tar spot, and did you put a fungicide on, and how long did it last, and what's the crop look like today?
Mm-hmm. So, and this is one thing that certainly, and we've been covering in the corn school as well, is this question of tar spot. Can you walk us through what happened this year or what we think may have happened? Because I think there is that question, would a second pass have been worth it? I think economically that's up in the air, but why is it that we're sort of even having that question right now? Is it because the crop went in late, or just that tar spot has spread in area? How are we handling the tar spot question right now?
Well, I think when we first got to the timing of that VT-R1 growth stage where we're traditionally putting on our fungicides, and we like to be able to hit that R1 because I think the dominant problem that we have as well as tar spot is gib ear rot. So we want to get that timing between V2 and R1 to hit those green silks with the fungicide. At that time, tar spot was there. It was present. It wasn't really doing a whole lot. It was either on the lower leaves and slowly moving up. And then we put the fungicide on, which is good from 3 to 4 weeks. And then as that ran out, the conditions kept going to favor tar spot development. So those little black dots are called stroma. They produce spores. Spores produce stroma. Stroma produce more spores. So you get this exponential ramp up of the disease. And then all of a sudden you have a green corn on Monday and brown corn next Monday. And so the disease really ramps up when the fungicide effectiveness fades away. So I think that's what we're seeing right now. Now, in that time frame, you've protected the most important part of the grain fill timing is at the beginning. So towards the end, you've got less and less yield potential to be captured. So the question is would that second fungicide spray allow me to capture more yield? That's going to pay for that second application. Initial research done in that Crop Protection Network researchers in the U.S. and with Albertina suggested that didn't always pay. I think it's an area where we need to understand the efficacy of that second pass a little more, especially this year. It's telling us we've got an awful lot of tar spot that's really come on here in the last week to 10 days.
Mm-hmm. It really does seem to be, and as you mentioned, perhaps we do need some more data on this, and that it's this timing window that it just seems so key that I can certainly see where you could get on the wrong side of that timing, right? If the fungicide efficacy runs out just a little earlier, and that disease just keeps growing a little bit longer, it really does have the potential, I think, to be incredibly costly, but we're still sort of on that cusp of figuring that out. So a lot of questions there. Definitely, though, on the soybeans, maybe we'll sort of end on that one. As you mentioned, and certainly where I am, the beans are, I would say, a little behind. Catching up, and probably will in this nicer weather that we're into. not a lot of white mold out here in the east, but for the south, in those wet conditions, how have the beans fared? We certainly heard a lot of issues with root rots and some sudden death syndrome. Where are things looking at as far as the overall disease package on the soybeans right now?
Well, sudden death syndrome is probably showing up in, I would say, at least 60% of the fields quite dramatically. And that disease goes all the way back to seedling emergence. That's when the initial infection occurs, and then the toxin finally gets to the top of the plant and gives us those very distinctive chlorotic leaves. So it's very disappointing because it's always the best beans in the field that show the disease symptoms. And if it comes in late, it has less impact on yields. If it comes in early, of course, you're getting wilted plants and not able to produce enough sugar to fill the bean. So that is always ramping up. So that's in the chance to be in the field to evaluate, A, is what's the varietal tolerance, and B, what seed treatment is being most effective on that. And if you have a lot of sudden death, then the management step that I would recommend is that you also do a soil test for soybean cyst nematode. It's often associated with a disease, but it does not cause a disease. It just, with the feeding scars on the roots, allow early entry for the disease. So there's an association, but not a cause. So there's lots of things there. And then in fields that were highly fertile, got timely rains, there's pockets there that are traditionally always high in white mold, and they've got pretty heavy infestations of white mold, I guess, even with a fungicide application.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So for those who missed the official Ontario weighted average, well, maybe and there, corn we've got ended up from this tour 193.5, beans 52.8. Dale, what do we need to weather-wise? What would you hope to see to actually lock in these yields?
Well, we want to see continued good weather. We don't need a frost until well into October. I prefer not to see a frost at the end of October. We do have, our heat units are just over 3,000 in southwestern Ontario as of May 1. But if you didn't plant your corn until the last week of May, then you need another 350 to 400 heat units to get mature if you still grew a full season hybrid. So we got to get well into the end of September, maybe in the first week of October without a frost. And then with tar spot being so aggressive lately, we've lost a lot of our green color. And so that does, if we're still filling grain, then the grain's going to pull sugars from the stalk. That's going to compromise our stalk quality. So then we need to be on the lookout for standability issues and do a pinch and push test with the corn stalks prior to harvest, know which fields are susceptible to potential lodging damage and get those fields off. One thing I will note is because we've lost our green color, the opportunistic fungus, the saprophytic fungus, the alternaria is going to come in. That corn's going to be turning pretty black here pretty soon, so it's going to be an awfully dusty harvest. So my advice to farmers, make sure you're wearing a dust mask. Not that it's toxic, it's just never a good idea to breathe in dust. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're going to have every combine is going to be the same color. It's going to be black, and it's just going to be a dusty, dirty harvest for corn. And we'll see the same sort of thing on soybeans as well. Soybeans, my concern with the dry weather is that we start losing so much moisture that we start getting pod shatter. Mm-hmm. So we may have to be prepared to maybe combine a little later in the day or start later in the day, maybe combine through the night. If we can do that, well, things are a little on the tough side just to prevent the pod shatter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Dale Cowan with Agris Co-op, thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Very good, Lindsay. Always good talking with you.
All right, that does it for the show today. Thank you to Bayer and DeKalb and the DeKalb Coda Farms for sponsoring today's show. We really do appreciate it. Thank you to all my guests who made it possible. And I will be back. I'm hosting the Friday show. I'll be hosting the Issues panel. We'll have an exciting guest on, as well as Calvin Hepner. And Sean Haney may or may not make an appearance. If you've got feedback on today's show, zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com, or you can, of course, call that feedback line 1-855-776-6147. For everyone at the Farm Show, have a great day. I'm sure it will be fantastic. And if you see my partner Chris there, please make sure he's behaving. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for downloading this episode, brought to you by Breck Young. Check out their new BY7204LL canola with Pod Defender shatter tolerance and Defender rated club root protection. Talk to your local retailer today.